Good morning, I'm Harvey Stenger, President of Binghamton University. Welcome to our Innovative Technology Complex campus. I'd like to recognize some special guests that are here today. Broome County Sheriff David Harder, Mayor of Binghamton Richard David, Vestal Town Supervisor John Schaefer, Union Town Supervisor Rose Sotak, and New York State's Commissioner for the Department of Motor Vehicles, Barbara Fiala. Thank you for coming today. It is always an honor to have Governor Cuomo visit us. It is unfortunate that today's visit is to address a problem that has swept New York State with tragedy, sadness, and death. I, along with our university's police force, welcome our state's new tough stance on heroin, and we promise to work together at a new and enhanced level to stop the use of this deadly and abused drug. Too many lives have been lost, and too many close calls have occurred. Our community and our campus thanks you, Governor, for bringing focus, resources, and laws to bear on this critical and tragic issue. It's an honor for me to introduce Lieutenant Colonel George Beach from the New York State Police. George.
Good morning. I am Lieutenant Colonel George Beach, Assistant Deputy Superintendent Field Command for the New York State Police, and I would like to thank all of you for being here. In recent years, the New York State Police and our law enforcement partners across the state have seen heroin use, heroin sales, and related heroin and opioid drug overdoses rise to levels that we haven't seen before. This legislation that Governor Cuomo will sign today will only help law enforcement to crack down even harder on the distribution of illegal drugs. Heroin has unfortunately made a resurgence in our communities and is more potent, addictive, and deadly than the drug we had experienced in the 70s and 80s. We are seeing more and more of our young people who, because they are no longer able to easily obtain pills like oxycodone, turning to heroin, which is cheaper and more readily available. And because it is such a powerfully addictive drug, many of these new users are getting hooked very quickly. And while the increase in use by young people is most prevalent and concerning, we are also seeing increased addiction to heroin and pills by people of all ages. These new laws have created a new crime, increased penalties. Recently, Governor Cuomo authorized the addition of 100 new state police investigators, giving law enforcement additional tools to continue New York State's fight against illegal drugs. Every day, law enforcement actively develops narcotics intelligence, investigating cases and taking down major drug operations all across our state. We are continually training troopers in education and interdiction techniques and for undercover work to stay ahead of trends in narcotics uses and sales. And recently, we began equipping our community narcotics enforcement units with specially trained canines devoted to detecting heroin and other drugs being shipped, mailed, trucked, and transported through our communities. But for all of us, there is still much more to do. And today, the governor is providing us with the tools we need to better address this problem. On behalf of all law enforcement, I thank Governor Cuomo for these resources, for his leadership, his support, and his commitment to our mission of protecting all New Yorkers and keeping our communities safe. And I would like to introduce now Assemblywoman Donna Lupardo.
Okay, I'm back here someplace. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Well, welcome. We wish we were here under happier circumstances, but nonetheless, we are very proud of the work that went into this package of bills. Before I say anything further, I would like to acknowledge my colleague, Assemblyman Clifford Crouch. We've worked very closely together, and he's really a valued partner. Assemblyman Crouch, would you give him recognition? All right. Many of my colleagues have been concerned about this heroin epidemic for months now. really wringing our hands, wondering what to do. We've held roundtables across the state, public hearings, numerous recommendations have come in, and lots of proposals were on the table. But I have to tell you, it was right toward the end when Governor Cuomo got involved and made it very clear that we were not leaving session without getting something accomplished, that this really terrific package of bills came together. So I'm very, very proud of the collaborative work that went into this, and I'm very pleased that the governor got involved in such an important way. For those of you who are in the treatment world or in the human services world, we are going to substantially improve treatment options in this package. A new model of care is going to be rolled out that really will be the envy of many states. Early diversion, case management, improved access to care, and a consistent approach by our insurance companies. There's going to be new penalties for illegal distribution, and the all-important component is the public education campaign, because honestly, it's hard for us to wrap our heads around the attraction to this drug. You know, when we were kids, this was definitely something no one was interested in being involved with in any way, shape, or form, and now it seems almost commonplace. You know, as the chair of the Children and Families Committee, I was also very interested in making sure that our children who come through the family court system are also assessed for substance abuse, and this package takes into account that as well. Coming together as a community, as a family of New York, with the governor's leadership, I think we are taking an enormously important stride here, and I am very, very appreciative to have played a role. And to that end, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Senator Libous, who led this effort in the state Senate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna, and I too want to say thank you to my colleague Cliff Crouch for working with him on so many issues this session, and he's just a great and valued partner for Donna and I. And Donna, thank you for your leadership in the Assembly on this package. I shared with you on a couple of occasions where the governor, who likes to stay in touch with the legislature, picked up the phone and reached out to me. This was another one of those occasions, but this was right after the budget. We had finished our fourth early on-time budget, and he called me and said, we have a real problem with heroin in this state and in this country. He said, Tom, we have to address it, and we have to address it now. And as Donna said, he was committed to making sure that something would get done before we left session. As a matter of fact, he told us we would not leave Albany until a comprehensive package was completed. The Senate and my colleagues went throughout the state, had hearings, brought back information, shared that information with the governor and his staff, and we've put together, as Donna mentioned, some great legislation that passed that hopefully will help us move forward with this horrible, horrible epidemic that we have in our state. And the governor will talk to you a little bit more about that. Today we have with us a mother who lost her son 2 years ago today because of heroin. I'm going to ask her to stand so we can recognize her. Lauren Vanillo, who is with us today. Lauren. She knows firsthand the hurt, the pain, and what this can do to not only a mother, but a family. I do have the honor of introducing to you our next speaker. And I've had that privilege many times, and I consider it a privilege to do it again. You know, in New York State, 4 years ago when he took office, we had a state that was, I guess, labeled dysfunctional. They couldn't get budgets done on time, couldn't get legislation passed in both houses, meaningful legislation like a 2% property tax cap, or cutting personal income tax for the first time in, I believe, 58 years, or doing so many other things, 4 early on-time budgets, getting the legislature to work together. His leadership, and I mean that, his leadership put together a trust between Republicans and Democrats. And I stand before you as a Republican and tell you that through the last 4 years, it's because of a trust that we've had with Andrew Cuomo, we've been able to get things done for you, the people. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would give a round of applause to our governor, Andrew Cuomo.
Very sweet. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. It's my pleasure to be back in Binghamton, back at BU. Let me begin by giving President Stenger my thanks and my appreciation for the great job he is doing, which is extending beyond these four walls and beyond this campus, and is making a difference for the greater Binghamton region. Let's give him a round of applause. Lauren, we all share your pain, and we thank you very much for being with us today. And we thank you for your advocacy and the good work you've done and how you've turned a truly terrible, negative situation into a positive for other people. So thank you. Let's give Lauren another round of applause. Lieutenant Colonel Beach from the State Police. We are so proud of the State Police and the job they do for us every day, and we're even more proud that they're stepping up to this challenge. Lieutenant Colonel, thank you for being with us. And my colleagues from Albany, Donna Lopardo, who's a great legislator. You knew that. She is also a motorcycle enthusiast. You did not know that. And we share that in common, as well as a joy for good government. Donna Lopardo, pleasure to be with you. Assemblyman Cliff Crouch, pleasure. Thank you. Pleasure to be here with Cliff Crouch. Let's give him a round of applause. And your Senator Thomas Levis, he was very kind to me in the introduction. I appreciate that. That was very nice. He is one of the really special human beings in the New York State Legislature. And he is one of the natural leaders for the entire legislative body, Democrats and Republicans, both houses. And he's been a great mentor and a great friend to me. He very rarely agrees with me on anything. He takes a special delight in voting against my initiatives. I see when he votes against, he smiles. It's a little smile. And then he gives me a protracted explanation about why I was actually wrong on the initiative. But his leadership and his character says we can disagree on specific issues, and we can have a difference of opinion. But we can respect each other, and we can have an affection for each other, and we can work together to get things done. And that is the difference between the old Albany and the new Albany. That is the difference between Albany today and Washington today. Gridlock is when people say, I'm putting my politics first. And I'm putting my opinion first, and I'm putting my likes and dislikes first. And if I don't have my political opinion vindicated, then I'm going to stop everything. And that is very easy to do. It's very easy to say, well, I'm right and you're wrong, do it my way or we do nothing. That's gridlock, that's Washington. When you do that, everything stops. And when everything stops, everyone loses. What we've done in Albany for 4 years, which is harder, frankly. I understand your point of view. You understand my point of view. We may disagree, but let's work together to find a compromise so we move forward. Because if all we have is disagreement, then all we have is paralysis, and if we have paralysis, government fails. If government fails, the state fails. And that's one of the main problems this state has had for a long, long time. While other states were working and moving ahead, This state was gridlocked year after year, and the past 4 years have been different. I would like to claim credit, but I can't. It's really been a function of the legislature. It's really been a function of statesmen like Senator Libous who say, I have my own opinion, you have your opinion, but we're going to work together because I'm here to serve the people of the state. And that is what public service done right is all about. And that's Senator Tom Libous. Let's give him a round of applause. Now, having said all that, the legislature has finished their business. They are out of town. They are gone. The basic session is from January to June. And I am in a very good mood. I don't want you to put those two facts together necessarily, but there may be a connection. But the legislative session is over, and we had a great legislative session. It was my fourth. There's two parts to the legislative session. First is doing the budget, which is the numbers. Second part is what we just went through, which is where you do major pieces of legislation that are not related to the budget, and that's where we address the issue of heroin. But going back to the budget for a second, it was, as the senator said, the fourth budget done in a row. So what? Fourth budget done in a row. You must have to do the budget on time. Well, in theory, you do have to do the budget on time, but the state of New York never did the budget on time. That was the annual budget show that you would see on TV, remember? April 1, the budget's supposed to be due, and then they'd start to have the news broadcasts. We're 1 week from the budget deadline. Will Albany make it? Tune in at 6. And it would be a whole little show, and Albany never got the budget done on time. Over 40 years, very few times that it was actually done on time. And you would have the same argument back and forth and the same finger pointing. And you would look at it, and at least for myself, I would be disgusted looking at my government that had an April 1 deadline and had to pass the budget, and that was the law, except they didn't do it. And they didn't do it because they couldn't work it out amongst themselves. That was the Albany budget dance. We've done the exact opposite. 4 budgets in a row. That hasn't happened in 40 years. The last time you had 4 on-time budgets. And they were smart budgets, and they're honest budgets. We just had the rating agencies, Moody's and Fitch, which are the rating agencies, come in and rate the state's credit based on the budget. We got the first upgrade from Moody's in over 40 years and the highest rating ever from Fitch. We just got it this week when they looked at the budget. So it's a good, solid budget that we got done on time, and it has a singular focus, which is it's all about creating jobs. Jobs, jobs, jobs. So what's the best thing we can do in Albany? Create jobs. Get that economy running. I understand the economy is tough. I understand the national economy is tough. I understand we're still suffering. But do everything we can to get the economy running. That starts with cutting taxes. Why? Because especially in the state of New York, with that high tax reputation, anti-business reputation, you want businesses coming, you want businesses staying, cut taxes. We've done that every year for 4 years. We cut the personal income tax, and this year we cut the property tax. Why? The single largest tax in the state of New York is the property tax. The single most oppressive tax is the property tax. We had put a property tax cap on it. We now froze the rate of increase, so for 2 years, your property taxes can't go up if you have a cooperating local government. We then cut corporate taxes to the lowest level since 1968. And we want to say to corporations, we understand how you feel about New York. Take a second look at New York. We brought the manufacturing tax down to 0. Lowest level since 1917. Why? Because manufacturing jobs are gold for New York, especially upstate New York. And we want those manufacturers coming to upstate New York. So job 1 was cut taxes, and we did that. Job 2 was stimulate the economy by affirmative actions. We have regional economic development councils, that first time it's ever been done, that says, you know what, we're not all one economy. And we can't sit in Albany and figure out ways that are going to fix the economy. we're really 10 regional economies. And the southern tier is different than Western New York, is different than Long Island. And if you want a real economic development plan for the southern tier, then you have to go to the southern tier and get the southern tier to work together and to come up with their own vision to move forward. And that's what the regional economic development councils are doing so well. That's what President Stenger has such a major role in. And then we have to me, the highlight of the economic development efforts, which is what we call Startup New York, which is simple but powerful. Startup New York says any new jobs created in New York will pay no income tax for 10 years. Tax-free zones for 10 years. And we link them with the SUNY system. So you work with SUNY, you come up with an apprenticeship program with SUNY where SUNY can help grow your business, and you're in a tax-free environment. For all those businesses that say, we're leaving New York because taxes are too high, we can now say, New York is the least expensive place in the United States to site your business because we have 0 tax zones, literally the least expensive place in the United States. So that's what we did for the first half of the legislative session, get the budget done, about jobs, about taxes, about economic development, because that's job one. And at the end of the session, we did some major issues that I think are going to make a powerful difference in this state, like the issue of heroin. You know, and they say when it comes to a drug problem, step one is to admit the problem. Stop the denial. New York State has a terrible problem with heroin. And it's not that it's just a national problem, it is a New York-specific problem. 1/3 of all the heroin in the United States that was seized last year by the DEA was seized in the state of New York. Number of deaths since 2010 has doubled. And as you heard from the Lieutenant Colonel, well, we had heroin in the 60s. This heroin is worse. It is more potent than ever before. It's less expensive than ever before. You can get a heroin bag for $5, $10, and it is instantly addictive. The old heroin problem affected primarily what we called older people, 28 to 30 years old, older in the spectrum of users. This heroin epidemic, we have teenagers, and it's getting younger and younger and younger. And heroin is becoming more and more available. It's also not an inner city problem. It's not a poor people problem. It's not a problem that happens over there. It's a problem that is all throughout the state, more so in affluent suburbs with white teenagers from affluent middle-class families. And it is spreading like fire through dry grass. And we've been watching it for years, and it has just continued to grow exponentially. So what are we going to do? We're going to do everything we can. That's what we're going to do. Step one, as you heard, is our public safety response. 100 new state police officers who will be trained in heroin interdiction. They'll be added to the State Police Narcotics Task Force, doubling the size of that task force. It's an investment in state police, yes, but it's an investment for our children's benefit, and we're proud to make it. We're increasing the criminal penalties for people who sell heroin illegally, pharmacists. The crime goes to a high felony. We have a public education campaign to make parents aware. We have a education program that's going to be run on campuses like SUNY, where their police force, their university police, are trained in heroin and how to spot it and how to interdict heroin on college campuses. That training is going to be shared with private colleges. So literally, I think it's the most comprehensive response that the state government can be taking at this time, from criminal justice to education to treatment. We also have private insurance companies by regulation, clarifying what appropriate treatment is. Some people with heroin try to get treatment and their insurance company won't cover it or gives them a problem about coverage, the way many insurance companies do. But if you deny coverage for treatment for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, that person can very, very well go out and harm themselves or harm others in the interim. So we're clarifying the insurance regulations. So it's treatment, it's public safety, it's education on the campuses, increased penalties for those who disregard all of the above. And the last point is this. Government will be doing everything that we can do in terms of resources, laws, etc. State police will do everything that they can do. SUNY teachers, SUNY school system will do everything that they can do. But that's not going to be enough, because government doesn't really solve problems like this. These problems get solved when everyone takes responsibility for the issue. This problem gets solved when neighbors and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles really recognize their responsibility, and the entire community takes responsible for this situation. There's a saying in homeland security type issues, terrorism issues, when you see something, say something. There should be a saying for this problem: if you know something, do something. I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said, I knew something was wrong. I knew he was doing something. I knew she was in trouble. I heard that they were at a party and he was doing drugs. How many people? But then it's too late. Heroin very rarely is a problem that solves itself. There is never a good outcome if you allow the trajectory to continue unabated. The only hope is someone, somewhere, steps in, and that person is ready to get help and treatment. And that is a responsibility of each and every person in this room and each and every member of this community. Because Lauren's son was my son, was your son, was your son. And if we all assume that responsibility, then we will make a difference in this crisis. And we will make this state a better state. Thank you for having me today. I'll now sign the bill. Bill is signed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Governor Cuomo. We appreciate you choosing us again for an important announcement. Thank you for the audience for coming today. That concludes our event and ceremony. Thank you.